You spent hours creating something beautiful, posted, and nothing. Is social media still worth it for artists in 2025? In this episode, I will share how I approach social media today, how it actually supports my business, and how to make peace with the algorithm. Welcome to Open Studio Podcast, space for lettering artists, illustrators, and creatives who are determined to thrive in their passion. I'm Martina Flor, and I've been through the ups and downs of building a successful creative business. From struggling to make ends meet to achieving my dream of becoming an award-winning lettering designer, I've learned valuable lessons along the way. Now, I'm here to share those lessons, strategies, and tips so that your journey can be smoother. Whether you're looking to turn your passion into a career or want insights to boost your creative business, this podcast is your guide. Join me on the Open Studio Podcast and let's make your creative dreams a reality. Welcome back to Open Studio. I'm Martina Flor, lettering artist and educator. I've been on social media for over a decade, and I have had posts go viral and others flop completely. So let's talk about what actually matters. And in this episode, I'm gonna dive into some of the criteria or some of the levers that are really important, or I believe are really important in social media nowadays. Now, let's get something out of the way, which is whether social media matters or not. And to answer this question, I always get back to how I behave as a consumer. So whenever I am looking at hiring someone or buying a product, I go online and I try to find them on different platforms. I try to find them on LinkedIn or on Instagram. I try to find their public profile. And whenever I have the occasion that I don't find anything, then I start wondering, why is it that this person is so private? Why is it that this person doesn't have a public profile? For me, that's a red flag. I have rarely hired someone who I'm not able to evaluate how they are by looking at any social media platform. Remember that people hire people, and therefore they want to know you first beyond the work that you do. They want to know whether you are a good person to work with. They want to get an idea of what your life looks like, what your values are. So having no social media presence nowadays is not going to be positive for your business as a lettering artist, as an illustrator, as a designer. So definitely you want to have social media presence. Now, there is a few ways in which you can approach social media that feels empowering, that feels that is supporting your business versus having the feeling that you're wasting time on creating content for social media. So let's dive into today's episode. So the point number one is that yes, social media still matters, but only if you manage your expectations. I want you to understand that social media is not your portfolio anymore. In the past, it used to be this way. So you will have a little bit of a portfolio on social media, and some people will only have a social media portfolio. So they will only have their work on social media so that they could direct clients to their social media profile to have them look into their work. But nowadays, it has gone beyond this. And I'm going to explain why later on in this episode when I tell you a little bit about my story and how I used to manage social media in the past, how I used to approach social media in the past, and how I do it nowadays. Social media or your Instagram account is not your portfolio, it's your story. And you want to use it to share your process, but also your values, your journey, your story as an artist or designer. Remember that people hire people. People buy from people. They want to know the artist, the designer behind the work. They want to know you first. Of course, the work that you do is essential and very important, because if you're not the right person to do the job, then you're just not the right person, the right expert to do the job. But if your work is a match, and your personality, your story as an artist, your value as a creative are also a match, then you have great possibilities to get hired and also to conduct a successful process with that client. So I want you to keep this concept in your mind as you approach social media, that people don't only want to see the work that you create, but they also want to see you in some way or another. That doesn't mean that you need to create reels dancing, and you can do that if you want, and if you feel that this represents your personality. But I just want to tell you that it doesn't mean that you need to show up on camera all the time, or you need to be showing your face or talking to your audience all the time. There's ways in which you can express your values, your journey, your story, your present life without the need of showing up all the time. And I'm telling you this because I know that many of us creatives, we self-identify as introverts. So the idea of showing ourselves, showing our story, our life feels very intimidating, feels like a no, 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 please don't. But there's ways in which you can share a bit of that without the necessity to really show up on camera every time. We understood number one, which is social media matters. But number two is that it shouldn't be your only platform. I've seen so many artists, creatives, even businesses build their success on a social media platform. And when that platform changed, their business was over. And that happened some years ago with Facebook groups and Facebook pages. So whereas many businesses were built on the platform of a Facebook page, when Meta decided to change how Facebook pages worked and how they got visibility, those businesses came down. They couldn't reach their audiences. They didn't have any access to their buyers and customers. So bottom line to this, don't build your audience exclusively on social media. You want to always be building an email list. You want to, yes, use social media to reach a bigger audience, but you want to find ways to direct that audience into an email list that is living on your website, which is what I call the place where you will invite people into your universe. By building an email list, you are keeping your power to contact that person, so that if tomorrow Instagram or Facebook or TikTok changes their algorithm, you won't lose access to your audience, or at least you won't lose access to the most engaged part of your audience, which is that one that found you on social media and then wanted to dive deeper into your world and sign up for your email list. So building an email list is something you can skip nowadays as a lettering artist, as an illustrator, as someone who is building a creative business. And I wish I would have known this earlier in my career. I always had a sign up page on my website for a newsletter, but I never really directed people into the sign up page until almost 6 years ago, where I started doing that a bit more consciously. And I'm glad that I did, because nowadays I have a healthy email list of people that sign up and want me to reach out to them when I launch a new product, when I open up registrations for a new workshop or program. So remember, you want to build an email list through a website. So you also want to have that website, even if it's a simple one. And this way, through building an email list, you can reach out directly to potential clients. Remember that your Instagram isn't a business plan. It's a tool that you can use to reach out to a bigger audience, but it's not something you own. It's also not something that you control. So if Mark Zuckerberg in the future wants to change the algorithm and decides that your account is not getting any views, then your business is gone. And having your own email list is like having your own real estate in the internet, because you own that email address. They have signed up for your email list. They have agreed for you to send them messages. And that's the best way to reach out to potential clients. You're writing to people who actually want you to reach out to them. Now, the third point that I want to talk about in this episode is that you want to detach from vanity metrics. So a post with 100 likes can bring you a $10,000 client, and a post with 10,000 likes might bring you nothing. So I want you to know that numbers don't always mean results. So I want you to really take the weight out of each post that you do. It's not about that specific post that is going to go viral. It's about having that social media presence and being top of mind of your potential clients. So don't think that because a post is going to get a lot of likes, it's going to bring you more results, or it's going to translate into more paid assignments coming your way. So you want to focus on really sharing that part of your process, that part of your story, that part of your work that is relevant to you and is relevant also for your potential clients. The point number 4 that I wanted to touch on is that you want to share work that reflects your goals. In the previous episode, in episode 188, I talked about the reasons why your work is not getting noticed. And I spoke about this concept that stuck with me after a conversation with Lauren Home, which is a lettering artist that I interviewed inside my lettering program, the lettering seminar. And she said to me, you have to tell the world what you want. So if you want to be hired for a certain type of work, say book covers or packaging, then you want to share that type of work. That is your way of telling the world the type of work that you want to be hired for. And for this, you want to use social media so that you can reach audiences, that you can reach people who are looking for that type of work, right? So when it comes to your website, you will have a selection of work that is curated specifically to send that message to the world. And the same happens with social media. You want to share that type of work that you want to get more of. And you want to use your social media to build the body of work you want to be known for. Now, as I mentioned before, your social media will show a little bit more than just the work. It will show, behind the scenes, and also your story, your values, your present life as a creative. So you want to show more than just the work. And for this, I have a technical advice that you can use. You can focus on creating 3 content types. This is what we do in the studio, for instance. We have categories of content that we know work for our audience. So that's something I'm gonna touch on in a second, but we know already, we have identified the type of content that our audience resonates with. And a great strategy is to do more of what works. And what you can do is to choose 3 content types that work for your specific audience. So it could be, for instance, one that shows behind the scenes or processes, one that is finished pieces, so finished pieces of work or artwork, and one that is about sharing your thoughts or your values or your stories. So it will be more like a personal post. So you have these 3 content types, and then you rotate between those so that you need to, in a way, feel those 3 categories that come natural to you as well, and that you have enough material from, and then just use those content types to keep your social media accounts active. Once you do that, you can take a certain period of time. So you can take a month, for instance, and then look into the results, look into the analytics of that month, and understand what are the content pieces that work the best. And for this, you can evaluate whether they had the most reach. And for this, you have a few parameters that you can look into. So for instance, you can look into reach, you can look into engagement. So that means reach is how many people are you reaching with your content. Sometimes you have the possibility to see how many people that are already followers and how many people that are not followers are seeing your content or that specific content piece. You can also dive into engagement. So how many people are commenting and interacting with you when you post a certain piece of work. And another parameter is views, for instance, how many people are seeing your content. So you can look into these 3 parameters and see what are the content pieces that are being more successful. And that is, in a way, finding the overlap between what you love doing and what people want from you. So I speak about this concept often in this podcast, which has to do with how do you find a market to the work that you do. And you always need to find that overlap between, yes, the work you love doing, that you're expert at and that you're really good at doing, but also you need to find that overlap between what people demand from you, what people want to buy from you. And the same happens with social media. You need to put some content out there, some work out there, some different content types, for instance, like the ones I just mentioned out there, and see which one resonates the most with your audience. And you can do that by looking at the month of content or posts on social media and looking at the results and see what resonated most with my audience. And for the next month, you can just do more of that. You can double down on the things that worked and do less of the things that didn't work. This is exactly what we do inside the studio. And we have a few more categories of work that we share. But basically, if you look at my social media account, specifically Instagram, you will see that the type of content repeats. So the topic of the content repeats over and over again, because we have seen throughout the months that this is what resonates with our audience. So we just do more of the content that is valuable for our audience. Now, of course, that something important about this is that you need to stay consistent. And this is what artists and designers struggle the most with. So you start one month super motivated to be active on social media, and you post every day, and then at some point you cannot keep up, and then you start posting every 2 days, and then you start posting every 4 days, and then 3 weeks go by and you haven't posted on social media. So you really want to keep that consistency, the same way that you want to keep consistency on doing client outreach. Building a business and your career as a lettering artist, as an illustrator, as a creative is a lot about doing simple things consistently. And in order to stay consistent with social media, I will highly recommend you to schedule your posts. For this, you can use a scheduler. There is a low-cost schedulers that you can use. So there is Planoly, for instance, that has a very low-cost subscription. There's also, if you're using Adobe Creative Cloud, you can use the scheduler that comes on Adobe Express, which is included in your Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. So go check it out. That's for free because it's included in your subscription. And it's a scheduler, a very simple scheduler to post content on most of the most important social media networks. So remember, you don't want to be posting every day and doing that on the fly. You want to think about the work that you want to be posting or the content you want to be posting. Dedicate 1 day or 2 days to do just that, to schedule your posts, and let that happen automatically. And then at the end of the month, you will look at the results. You will look at the things that worked, the things that didn't work, and you will do more of the things that work. And you will again do the same process all over again. You will sit down and schedule the posts. You will dedicate 1 or 2 days to do that work, and then you will let that go automatically. So I want to tell you a little bit of the story of how I started using social media. I started using Instagram in 2010, which is when Instagram was just taking off. And I remember that at that time, it was all about sharing your work. So I would share photos of my process. I will share photos of my work, and it will be just about the captions will be only informative about what I was posting. And this was the way that I built my social media audience, specifically on Instagram. But in the past years, there has been a shift. So the algorithm in social media is benefiting those accounts that are first sharing consistently, and second, that are sharing valuable content for their audience. And whereas before it was all about sharing your work and showcasing your work, nowadays it's a lot more about inspiring others. That means that, of course, you can inspire others by sharing your work, but you can go above and beyond by also sharing the idea behind the work, by also sharing the story behind the work, by also sharing your story as an artist. So the story element is a very strong connector with people, and you have to remember that on social media, on the other side of the screen, there's people scrolling. And the easiest way to create connections with people is by speaking about the human factor of your work. And therefore, the algorithm benefits also accounts and posts that have some sort of personal element to them, that people can connect with them through not only seeing a pretty picture, but also connecting at a personal level. So if you look at my Instagram account, in my past years, it has has become a lot more personal in the way that I am showing up a lot more. I am sharing my story a lot more. I am using this, personal bits of my own story as a lettering artist to inspire my audience, to infuse some interest into the artwork that I create. And I know that I personally show my face on social media, and I don't have any trouble speaking to a camera, but that wasn't always this way. In the past, I was also very hesitant to post a photo of me. I was also very introvert, and I found it hard to actually show up and show my face on social media. But as I grew as a lettering artist, as I grew also as a businesswoman who is putting herself in front of the work, then I started to feel more comfortable with that. And I recently was interviewed at the Angry Designers podcast, which I have shared in episodes 180, let me tell you, 180 5 and 186. I shared part of that interview or that conversation with Massimo from the Angry Designers podcast, where we spoke about personal brand and how in the current moment we are living in, designers and artists need to start putting themselves in front of the work more than ever. There are so many people doing the work that you do and doing it well as well. Of course, no one can do it like you do it, but a lot of people are doing lettering, a lot of people are doing illustration, and they have the greater capability nowadays to be visible online, to have a social media presence, to reach an audience with their work. Nowadays, the differential part of your work is not only the work itself, but also you as an artist. And this is why you need to be standing in front of your work as much as you can. So letting the work speak for itself is no longer enough. You need to also be speaking up as an artist to differentiate yourself from other artists out there. And social media is a great way to do that. So social media is still powerful if you use it right. And start seeing it as a tool, not as your boss. Don't see social media as the thing that you need to be creating something specific for, but see it as a tool to reach new audiences and find ways to bring that audience or the most engaged part of that audience onto your world. That is your website, your email list. Never forget that. You want to own that part of real estate in the internet, and the way to do that is by building your email list. You don't own social media, you do own your email list. So I hope this episode helped you create a more healthy relationship with social media and also to increase your reach and your capability to reach new audiences with your work and get hired. Now, take a screenshot of this episode and share your biggest insight on Instagram. Tag me at Martina Flor so that I can see it and reply to you. Thank you so much for joining today, and see you on the next episode of Open Studio. Bye bye.